Brilliant. Lovely to have you all here today. Thank you so much for joining and to learn more about demonstrating the ROI of Salesforce. So most of you might be here because maybe it's something you want to do, maybe you experience the pain point of not having it, or maybe you just actually want more tools in your toolbox to know how to talk through this topic with your stakeholders. It can be really hard to tangibly measure if you don't get right down to the nitty-gritty of it. But the benefits of it really outweigh, the negativity of not having it. By having a really clear idea of ROI, it really means that you can have really positive, constructive conversations with your different stakeholders, and you can demonstrate to them the value that Salesforce is going to offer them, hopefully personally as well as for the business overall, which ultimately will boost buy-in, will boost user and product adoption, which is absolutely your role as a Salesforce professional. That's what success looks like. Ultimately, you want people to be bought into using the system and to be loving it. And if you get those success stories behind you, that's really going to boost your career. You're going to have what we call the trailblazer stories. The trailblazer stories where, the team love it, the customers love it, the business is thriving off using Salesforce. They're the stories that you want to be telling at your interviews or at promotions or at job pitches, because that's going to help you win the work and going to also give you the confidence to ask for a higher salary, a higher day rate, a higher proposal rate. All of this is going to add value to you. And without having a clear ROI behind everything, it kind of means that you're not going to have all of these things. There's less buy-in, less adoption, and it's, you're less confident in what have I achieved in my career. Like, you want to be able to demonstrate the business value that you're creating to organizations. And that's what we call the trailblazer story. And it's what you see in the flashing lights up when we go to Salesforce conferences. It's those big stories on the screen, these amazing stories of how it's transformed a business. And that's what I want you all to think about when you're delivering any Salesforce project. So the resource pack and the presentation that I've put together today is really about supporting you on that journey and about helping you understand how you can get the most out of Salesforce. So just to explain who Supermums are, Supermums, we've been going for 8 years. We really provide a range of training programs to individuals to help them launch and accelerate their Salesforce career. That could range from admin to consultancy skills to data cloud to marketing cloud, a Tableau course, you name it. We're kind of building out our training portfolio. But equally, we work with businesses and employees within businesses, so we can train people who are working in a business, but also we'll place talent, our candidates, into job opportunities within companies to help them build out an amazing Salesforce team. So we're always happy to talk to anybody that's looking for training, looking to hire talent, looking to land their first or their next job opportunity. And we can also support you with your CV as well. Through everybody that's worked with us, we've built this amazing global community of Supermums all over the world. You're welcome to join us of whatever gender you are. And quite often we'll meet up at events, user groups, conferences, etc., and sort of get together. So we're an official Salesforce partner, have been for many years, and also Trailblazer Workforce Partner. And we get lovely reviews on Trustpilot. So that's who Supermums are. In terms of myself, some of you will probably know who I am.
I think it's called admin. And this is a consultancy. And she's at her.
Sorry. Sorry, I just got muted. Just to explain my background and why I'm really passionate about this subject, I became an accidental admin and then pivoted into becoming a freelance Salesforce consultant. Really sort of explored my way through doing that. When you're kind of starting out consulting, you suddenly realize you need all these different skill sets. And that's what I'm going to talk a lot about today is, how to formalize your approach to projects. How do you conduct and sort of have a strategy for things? So I very much invested in learning more about business analysis, agile project management, change management in response to kind of the learning journey of running projects. And I curated a lot of resources and tools and templates, which I now teach in my consultancy skills course. And part of what I'm sharing with you today are tools that I used when I was running the consultancy and tools that I share within the consultancy skills course as well. Now, due to having a very structured approach to how we did projects and how we deliver on them professionally, we ended up with a 60% repeat and referral business rate, which really helped grow my consultancy during the time I was running it, and ended up with a team of 20. And we'd worked on over 700 projects with 350 clients during the time that I ran it. And then I decided to focus on Supermums full time and close the consultancy. But a lot of the resources and templates, I say, we share on the consultancy skills course. And I love teaching people now how to deliver Salesforce projects. So we have 2 books, Become a Super Salesforce Admin and Become a Super Salesforce Consultant, and also the consultancy skills course as well. So that's my background, my knowledge, and the reason why I'm sharing this content with you today. So let's dig into this content in more detail. The first sort of question really, or topic to talk about, is why do we need to measure value? You know, why is this really important to us, and what are the pain points of not doing it? So firstly, projects might not even go live, or they might be cut if people don't really understand the clear business case. There has to be a very clear pain point. You know, it's like sales. People only buy something if it's going to solve a pain for them. It's going to solve a problem. So the first thing you want to do is obviously make sure that you know what that pain point is and people are clear. If there's no clear business case, projects will get stalled. People see things as a cost versus a value. You know, if there's a clear value out of it, they're like, oh my gosh, well, actually, by spending this money, we're creating this amount of value in terms of income or in reduced costs. Absolutely, it makes sense. But if it's just seen as a cost without any tangible benefit, again, people will cut that product, and redundancies will be made because they don't see the value in it. If you can't demonstrate value, you're also not getting the recognition that you deserve. You're not able to articulate the value you've created in interviews or in project review meetings. And the likelihood is then you might not get a promotion or extension of your contract or anything else. And that will obviously also impact your career. So you might end up, you know, having slow career progression you might not get a salary promotion that you want, or, you know, you might risk, to say, redundancy, worst case scenario. So always demonstrate your value. Like, this is so important to do every day in all of your meetings, you know, with every project you do. Demonstrate the value so they understand the value you're bringing to the business, which will help you, say, argue for that promotion, argue for, you know, not being made redundant, or they won't even think about redundancy because they see the value that you're creating. And so that's about you as an individual. The other side of it is that you want to make sure that there is adoption. If your users don't understand the value and the benefits of Salesforce and why it's been implemented, they won't engage with it. They won't be excited about it. They won't be enthused. They won't adopt the product. And then it will have, I call, the digital belly flop. You know, it won't get to that point where it's used, and they'll end up, it'll be repurposed 2 years later or cut and something else will be put in. So low adoption will happen, and then there'll be no roadmap either. So there'll be no investment in future products. I've heard it quite a lot, you know, where they're stuck with one product, they want other products to be implemented. But the reality is that, you know, unless they see the value from one product, or they understand the value they're going to get from future products, the C-suite won't invest in anything. So it's not about, can we have Sales Cloud? It's about, what will Sales Cloud bring to the business? What value will it bring? What will it help reduce? Will it help increase? You know, that's always the conversation you've got to be having. So we're going to be talking about 15 different KPIs today, which might be relevant to some of your projects. And it's not exhaustive, of course, you know, there's more beyond this, but ultimately there'll be poor buy-in on every level. And it's why you should be thinking first and foremost about the value that Salesforce is creating in every day. So there's 6 steps that I'm going to run through today in terms of how to tackle this. I'm going to give you a broad overview, and then we're going to go deeper, do a deeper dive in each of these areas, just so you understand it a little bit more. So the first step is to make sure that you're doing an in-depth business analysis. The in-depth business analysis starts from that very, very first conversation about why Salesforce, why this product, what is it going to do for you? What is the pain points that your business or your C-suite are facing right now? Is that high-level executive conversation. about, where is the business going and where does it need to do? And that's where I always say you're like a management consultant. You're not just building a flow, you are having really incredible conversations with the management team to go, how is business going right now? Where are the pain points? Like, you have to step into that role where you are operating at that C-suite level. Every Salesforce professional should think about themselves as helping the management team achieve their business goals. That's where you are operating. That's the level that you need to be talking to. So in-depth business analysis is about talking to C-suite, gathering that information, and then secondly, producing the business case. And with the business case, you need to be able to gather the baseline information. So where are they now? What's the baseline of it? What does that data? And when we look at some examples, this will make more sense. And if they were to invest in products, you need to understand the relative cost of that investment. That could be the product and the people and the time, for example. And what would be then the outcome? So what do we expect to see different in terms of value as a result? That's what's got to be articulated within the business case. Now, once you produce the business case, you then want to engage the executive sponsorship. That's where you want to present how Salesforce is going to add value to you. You want to make sure it's aligned to their business priorities, speaks to their direct needs. And then you're going to need to get their buy-in from everybody. So the managers all need to be brought into this, because they're going to make sure that they can communicate this clearly as part of a change management plan with all of the end users. As a Salesforce professional, you have a role to facilitate change management and certainly make sure you're using language in all of your workshops with end users around the business case. Why is this important? Why are we here today? Why are we talking about it? You want to always talk about the whys, not just the hows. But equally, the managers need to live and breathe that same level of enthusiasm as you. You get why Salesforce is going to add real value. You see it day in, day out in some way or form. And what we want to do is obviously help you to articulate that, and then the managers can grasp it and they can say to all their teams, this is why we're using Salesforce, because it's going to help us overachieve on our targets, help us reduce administration, and be very tangible. We want more tangible measurables than just being able to say that. Now, moving through to number 4, we go into prioritization. Whenever we go into a workshop around business analysis, we can come out with 501 things. Believe me, you get everybody excited and the wish list goes really long. What's really important is that you can prioritize those to business needs. So I'm going to do a deep dive into DSDM methodology today and explain what that is and why it's really important to this process. So you can really articulate which projects and which KPIs are the most important to measure, and how they align. And then once you've prioritized, it is about then rolling everything out. And with that, there is a need for an effective change management plan. Now, change management is, there's various methodologies to it. It's a science. It's something that you can learn and understand and apply. So I'm going to talk about some of the different instances of change management, some of the different tools and techniques, things that we have applied on projects and I teach on my course. But it's very important to have a change management plan in place. And then number 6, most importantly, is to evaluate the impact that you've had. Once we've gone around this circle of identifying KPIs, understanding the baseline, we want to make sure that by number 6, we've got ways to measure the progress towards those KPIs. And that might be over a period of time. So it could be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, depends on the KPI and the ability to measure it and in what time frame. But we want to celebrate those success stories. We want to share those and disseminate them with C-suite, the rest of the team, and go back round circle. And that for you personally, as a Salesforce professional, that to be your trailblazer story, as say the story you tell at interview, and for your pitches and your promotions and everything else, is about that full circle. So they're the 6 steps that you want to take with this process. And we're going to do, as say, a little bit of a deep dive into each of these as we go through. So we'll kick off with business analysis. with business analysis is about having a very methodical approach to gathering and documenting requirements. I've kind of positioned this into 4 different streams here. So the first stage of business analysis is why. Why are we doing this project? It's everything that I've talked about right now. It's about understanding the business strategy of the organization. It's about understanding the KPIs related to the business strategy, and then also having clear KPIs related to what the Salesforce project is going to do for them, again, to help improve the business KPIs. You need to have an executive sponsor on board who is your best friend as a Salesforce professional. They're the ones internally, amongst managers and users, that are championing it, that are heralding it, not just allocating money, but also helping lead the communication around why this is happening and the benefits of it. You need to make sure you have a clear centre of excellence in place so they can help you prioritise the projects that come up for you and prioritise which KPIs are most important. So the centre of excellence is formed by the key management leaders across the different departments. You should have a clear business case at this point, and you want to make sure there's lots of stakeholder engagement, which leads me to how. So with stakeholder engagement, you need an elicitation strategy. Elicitation is where you are understanding requirements, priorities, pain points from everybody and documenting it all as outputs. Now, elicitation could be interviews, workshops, surveys, shadowing, document analysis, meetings. There's a varied ways. And the way that you approach this will depend on the culture of the organization, the type of stakeholders, and, I suppose their capacity to meet, etc. And from all of that, you're going to have outputs. So with outputs, you're going to produce a business case, you're going to have a CRM strategy document, you're going to have process maps, you're going to do a technical audit, you're going to do stakeholder mapping, which is where, you see all the stakeholders, who they are and what they engage with. You're going to produce a requirements log, and you're going to have a technical workbook. So you're going to produce all of these outputs off the back of your conversations with people. And then in terms of execution, what that's going to do is produce a lot of requirements for you. So with requirements, you're going to have functional requirements, you're going to have a list of non-functional requirements, you're going to need to prioritize all of these, which we will move on to. We're going to have a clear time frame of when things need to be delivered. We're going to have a clear budget. Now, the budget is really important for that cost benefit analysis, right? Because if we don't understand the cost for everything, you can't work out the ROI. So budget, resource, time frame is really important, and then any dependencies between things. So having a very clear approach, having good templates, good documentation is really, really important for business analysis. But ultimately, in light of what we're talking about, the ROI, you need to know costs, you need to know the priorities, you need to know what work needs to be done and what ultimately it's going to cost out off the back of it. Now, here are your example 15 KPIs. Now, when I was running discovery sessions and having these meetings with C-suites, I would bring this slide up in front of them. Because if you simply just ask people without giving any possible KPIs, if you just ask them, like, what do you want the value to be? It's very hard for them to suddenly just magic that up in their head, or even to really understand what is possible. They don't necessarily understand everything that is possible with Salesforce. So when you give them examples of KPIs, it helps broaden their awareness and understanding, and also the opportunity, because they're like, oh yeah, okay, no, this is great, and helps them see actually more value than they perhaps ever anticipated. So with all of these KPIs, which I'll go through, you'd want to obviously understand which ones are the biggest priorities, ask them, which of these are relevant to them, and is there any that are missing? Because also what this might do is trigger like their thoughts around, actually, there's other things. This is, example ones. They're very relevant to every business, but there are absolutely other KPIs that might be relevant. So with customer service, they might want to improve their feedback score. Maybe it's currently not very good. Maybe it's a 3 and they want to get it to a 5. Maybe they don't even measure their feedback score right now. So understanding feedback from people might be a key priority for them if they're finding that they are getting complaints, for example. They want to know what's going on. So the baseline might be they have no feedback score. The baseline might be that their feedback score is currently averaging at a 3. Where do they want to get to? Well, that could be a 4 or 5, or a 10, or whatever they're measuring it on. And that might not be a financial value intangibly, but obviously if people are having a better reputation, a better experience, better feedback, they feel more, they've got higher customer satisfaction, the likely is they're going to retain them, or likely to refer to you. So it does have a secondary financial gain in terms of feedback score. It could be around customer service increasing impact and outcomes. So have you solved their pain point in any way? What value have you given to that customer? So maybe there's some tangible outcomes or impact you might have with customers that you want to measure, or improve. And you might also want to track improved referral rates. That could be something like the Net Promoter Score, like how often would you refer somebody to us? That could be related to feedback as well. Or it could be just tracking who's referring to you. So there's some that relate to customer service. In terms of stakeholder engagement, you could look at improved engagement rates. How engaged are people in your activity? Now, if you have a product like Experience Cloud or knowledge articles, you might track engagement rates in terms of how they are interacting with the material and content you're sharing with them. It might be through the website, it might be through, say, other things that you're offering them, which are other Salesforce products. So engagement rates could be something you measure. Increase in ROI campaigns, so looking at return on investment from your marketing campaigns. Are people responding to your emails or your WhatsApps or your SMS? Again, with Service Cloud, you might have omni-channel. With Sales Cloud, you might have different tools that you interact with, like Agentforce, for example, or SMS integration, or WhatsApp integration, social media integration. Maybe you have different communication campaigns and you want to track the ROI from those, and introduce new communication channels to improve that ROI. And again, you might track improved retention rate. So maybe you want to see that your customers are retaining with you. You've got an increased repeat customer rate. So you'd look at the baseline now, whether they even track it, what's the baseline to where it's going to do, but you might introduce different products, obviously, to support that improvement. The third category is efficiency. So it could be about reducing costs for this organization. Maybe they are using 3 different products that could be consolidated into one with Salesforce. And so that would reduce their license fees, for example. So maybe it's about reducing product cost in some way or shape or form. It could be about achieving quality standards, because maybe currently their current systems don't allow them to meet a certain level of compliance or quality standard in order to deliver or to win contracts. So by having an improved product and having been able to meet certain quality standards, maybe that's going to allow them to win contracts going forward of a greater financial value. The third one in here is about reduced leakage. So currently they could be renting out meeting rooms, and maybe through meeting rooms at the moment, they maybe only have, they don't maybe even know their occupancy rate, possibly. It might not be visible to them. They might have a 20% occupancy rate because maybe they're not using a spreadsheet or something, it's not managing it very well. And they could introduce a Salesforce app that helps them manage meetings and bookings of their meeting rooms, and maybe they can email people when they see there's got gaps to improve that occupancy rate. So that's an example of reduced leakage. Leakage could be utilization of resources, utilization of meeting rooms. It could be costs that you've got going out on something else. So that's efficiency. The fourth category is business intelligence. So it could be about tracking ideas for continual improvement. So again, how do you track feedback or getting ideas from your customers or from even your employees? How do you gather ideas and sort of look at those and improve upon them? It could be about new innovations. It could be about improving market proposition. So all of these, again, have a secondary financial value to them because it's about improving the business, but it's about how do you gather that intelligence in the first place to add those levers into the business. And then final one is the one that everybody probably loves because it's very primary financially focused. But the fifth one is about financial sustainability and ultimately growth. So by introducing solutions like Sales Cloud with online payments and these signature solutions, you could get quicker customer conversion. By having quicker customer conversion and having Sales Cloud, so your pipeline is visible, and using AI to manage your pipeline, maybe you've increased your revenue. You could be introducing new sales communication tools like SMS or WhatsApp or different ways, which again might increase your revenue. And then the third one could be improved financial assurance. So assurance is having faith and confidence in your forecast, knowing, what your forecast is, because maybe again, they didn't have anything like Sales Cloud. Everybody had their own spreadsheet. Maybe they had no visibility. So the baseline could be they had nothing or that there was no visibility. To improve financial assurance means that you've got full visibility of forecasting. So one, it might be that you've got a forecast and you can obviously see the forecast increasing, but two, it might just be visibility of forecasting. So there's lots of different ways. So these are some examples to look at, and you can keep building on this and obviously devolve it. But with all of these, you want to have very tangible baselines, right? It didn't exist, or it's currently a 3 or a 4 or 60%. And then you want to discuss with the business, the management team, what success would look like. Where do we, if we invested 10 grand, £1 million, whatever it is, into these Salesforce products, what do we expect that to do for us? So if we were in a situation where it's a fundraising organization, a non-profit, a charity, they want to introduce an online payment solution to raise donations easily and quickly, and maybe an SMS solution that's going to help them get text message donations as well, they might invest 50 grand in that setup, but they will in their mind have a view that they want to triple that investment. So actually, if they spend 50 grand in the first year, they want to fundraise 150 grand through that method. That's what their target would be. And then the second year, it would be triple that again. So you want to be able to have clear expectations around what does success look like off the back of it as well. And this is where product alignment comes in. When you're looking at the KPIs and these key areas, there's always going to be products that will help with that process. So with improved customer service, you're going to be looking at the Salesforce products that are going to support the contact management and 360 customer view. Salesforce obviously provides this. If everybody's got their own spreadsheets, moving to Salesforce that offers the 360 view is going to provide that. It might be about improving data security and GDPR compliance. It might be about improving the customer journey with using paths and flows, for example, and all of this will help. This also could include Service Cloud, for example, and improving case management, Experience Cloud, for example, and allowing people to self-help and log into a secure area to get help. So with all of these, there's always going to be products. So here we've got marketing solutions, online surveys, Service Cloud, chatter, communities. Here around improved efficiency, you've got mobile tablet optimization, you've got automations that need to be done. In terms of improved business intelligence, it could be about integrating your systems so you've got all the data in one place. It could be around Einstein Analytics or Agentforce. It could be about reports and dashboards. And in terms of improved financial stability, you've got online payment or financial integration, for example, or Sales Cloud, non-profit, Success Pack. All of these different aspects. So again, this is non-exhaustive, but what you want to produce as part of your business case is, which products are responsible for helping achieve that improvement in business value. So when you've got all of these requirements and they've maybe picked out 5 KPIs that are, relevant, they feel relevant to their business, you then want to have a prioritization strategy with them. And you want to use a specific method for this. Agile project management, DSGM methodology, which is what I teach, is an internationally recognized qualification. It's really great to teach them this. It's a tool that they can use across the business. It's not just Salesforce related. It's a tool that you can use every day, even in your own personal life. It's something that you want to be teaching them as part of any Salesforce project. Now, with DSGM methodology, there's 8 principles. I'm not going to go through all of these today. But as you can see them here on the slide, you've got focus on business need, and then you've got all of the other ones. The one that I want to highlight is the first one, though, which is focus on business need. because fundamentally with Agile, it's that project management methodology that is about the organization and what project you're going to tackle first in terms of Salesforce is always pointing at the North Star of focusing on business need. What is it that the business needs right now that is fundamentally important? So when you prioritize things with Agile project management, you use the Moscow rules methodology. Moscow rules stands for must, should, could, and won't have. Must is when something is a business critical, i.e. the organization will falter if we don't do this now. So that's always where you want to hold the conversation with people. When they're saying we want everything, you have to push back in a nice, obviously constructive way. And using this methodology is where this helps. Because when you have a internationally recognized methodology and you're using Moscow rules with clear definitions, it allows you to facilitate what can be sometimes a difficult conversation with a client around, let's really prioritize these 10 things that you want around these. Which of these 10 things you've got are business critical right now, in that the business will potentially falter, whether it's financially or in any other way, if we don't sort this out. That is a must have. It's business critical. There's no workaround. It's a business priority. If there are things that don't meet that criteria, then typically they might fall into should or could or won't. Now, should is where there's a current workaround. It is really important to the business, but there is a current workaround which isn't broken. There is a way of doing something. It's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. There's a secondary gain to be had from doing it. Absolutely, as I say, it's still important, but it's not critical to the minimum viable product. And so that's where you want to have that slight pushback with a client, and to facilitate. Hopefully it won't be a pushback if you're facilitating. If you've taught them this, you need to teach them the methodology and you've taught them, you can have that constructive conversation to go, right, which ones, let's have these definitions, have this up on the board in front of them so they can see the definitions really clearly, and let's put things into groups. So once you've done your must, you'd always consider to do all of your musts as part of a project. Your shoulds, hopefully you might get 20% of your shoulds done. You'll then put things into boxes which could have, i.e. they're nice to have, part of a future roadmap, they're opportunistic. And then you've got your won't haves, which is they're not necessary right now. They could be part of a future roadmap, but they're still to review. It sounds exciting, but we don't really need it. So I would always present this. I'd have it up in any business analysis workshop. Whenever I'm doing a business analysis workshop, I would explain the SDM methodology and Moscow rules at the outset, and I would be embedding it in my business analysis workshops. So whenever a requirement comes up, we can prioritize it in a must, should, could, won't have way. Now it starts at the top though. It starts with the KPIs. Which of the KPIs are the must-haves? And then underneath that, you then go into the workshops underneath that, so once you've identified the business pain point and the business project to do first, based on the must-have KPIs, you then prioritize all the other requirements underneath that in the more granular way across these requirements as well. So this Moscow rules methodology works at every level of the project. Which project first, then what to do on the project, and sort of down below that as well. Now, with all of this, when you're in these workshops with people, you've also got to bring people on for the ride. So as much as great as technology is, you need to be able to enthuse and engage and empower your users to love Salesforce as well, because you want to maximize adoption and value. So the third thing around KPIs is you want to find out what's important to people in that room. You've talked to the C-suite, that's great, right? They have their business goals, they have their business priorities, which is really, really important. But who's in that room and what's important to them? When you start a business analysis workshop, you want to go around the room and say, what do you see Salesforce solving for you right now? What's your biggest pain point in your job? Now, when I've asked those questions, it's really, really interesting about what comes back. I've had people where they say, well, actually, I want to do less admin so I can get home on time and see my kid after work. right? You know, that for them is a reason to use Salesforce. And you've got to solve that pain. And that's lovely, right? That's a lovely sort of feeling to have, that you're helping an individual get home to their kid, as much as it is helping a business make millions more pounds, right? You know, you operate at different levels with this, you know, this feeling and our role as a Salesforce professional. So you want to understand, you know, as part of change management, yes, the big KPI goals for the business, but two, who is everybody in that room and what are their KPIs? What's important to them? How do they measure success? And prioritize it with them. And then you builds the business case, right? It builds the business case from a personal point of view, like their personal buy-in as much as the business buy-in. You want to be able to say to them, this is the business reason why we're doing this. This is the reason we're here today, the reason we're talking about this, the value that will bring to the business. But let's talk about the value to you. So the first step of change management and having a really good change management plan is about analyzing the situation. It's about the rationale. What's the rationale for a Salesforce, for the business and for everybody in the room? How ready is everybody? So again, when I teach change management, we talk about all the areas of readiness. Like, are the people ready for this? Is there things going on that might impact the success of this project right now in that organization or in people's lives even? Is there a clear business case, which hopefully we've worked on previously? And what is the risk? There's 10 areas of risk. And actually, of all the projects I worked on, my risk analysis spreadsheet has 22 different risks in it. And I would do that risk analysis with the clients because, one, it helps them understand what the risk can be, and it also helps them mitigate the risks. So your change management plan, your first stage is the analyze part, the rationale, the readiness, the business case, the risk analysis. You want to do that on all of your projects to help you understand, you know, where are we going with this and how do we, you know, make sure that we are going to, well, one, can we achieve, you know, this improvement in KPIs? Is there any risk to not achieving the risk of these, improving these KPIs and sort of getting there? Now, once you've done that, at that point, you need to decide on, you know, should we move forward with this project at this point, yes or no? There's a fundamental line in the sand at this point that you're either going to jump over or you're going to step back. And this is really interesting to do as part of a job interview or if you're pitching for a piece of work, because actually, if you ask all these questions at the very outset before you even get involved in something, it can help you make that decision about, is this for me or not? Because then you've done your due diligence. It's why it's so important that you ask more questions almost in your interview than they ask you, you know, because you're wanting to determine whether you should go ahead with this project, if they're ready for this, if they've got the right resources, you know, what are the risks? Have they thought about this, that, and the other? You know, you can get really good at that process and make sure that you're stepping into a project or a job that is going to have all the right ingredients for you to have success. So that's the first thing. If you decide to jump in with 2 feet, that's when you need to move to the plan stage. And the plan stage is when you have a very clear approach to what you're going to do. The approach will depend on the culture of the organization. There are 4 different cultures typically we talk about. Obviously, there might be more than that generally, but there's 4 different cultures of organizations, and each one will require a different approach to how you go about this project. You'll want to make sure you've got a good team structure in place. You've got a good team. You want to have a stakeholder engagement plan. You want to have a very clear project management plan and a change management plan. So these are all the things you want to have in place for the plan stage. Then you roll out the strategy. So with strategy, you have a clear leadership team. Now, going back to the business case here and the KPIs, that exec sponsor needs to lead this conversation. They need to clearly articulate why we're doing this Salesforce project, what the business value will be, what the business case will be. So there needs to be a clear communication strategy and also motivational strategy. So again, there's 4 different ways that you can motivate people. That's a different video masterclass that we've done before. One might be gamification, for example, like, you know, how many Trailhead badges can you get, you know, and getting everybody on board with Trailhead can be one great motivational strategy, which will suit a certain culture of organization, but it absolutely won't suit everybody. So getting people on board and excited and enthused, you need to think about the right motivational strategy, how you communicate. People need to see and hear things. I mean, it used to be 3 times. People now say 9 because there's so much noise. You need to communicate things in 9 different ways for it to sink in, particularly if we call people who are sleepers. So you're going to have, in terms of your stakeholders, we talk about 4 quadrants. You're going to have people that are champions that are really wanting this. You're going to have sleepers who basically are going to ignore everything until like it really like hits them some way, and they take note of it, hence the 9 times. You're going to have people that are completely against it, you know, and don't want to get on board. And so with all these different camps, you're going to have a different communication strategy, and to make sure that you're bringing people on for the ride, you know, with you. So hence there's a clear strategy needed. And then you go through the whole project and you need to embed change. So when you deliver the actual execution of the change management strategy, you need to prepare the team, you need to embed the changes as the norm. You need to have a good adoption strategy. So how are we going to measure? What does adoption look like? I always love this question. And I asked this in my consultancy skills class. You know, how would you measure good user adoption? If we were to wake up every tomorrow and be happy and satisfied that we, you know, everybody was using the system in the way we wanted them to do, how do we measure that? That's a really interesting conversation, and again, needs some really good KPIs and ways of tracking it. And then how do we support that? You know, what training material do we have? You know, how do we train people? How do we roll that out? I talk about the gold standard training strategy. You know, how do we make sure we're delivering training to accommodate all the different learning styles? All of this is so, so important, because if we don't have a good training strategy in place and a good, you know, measuring adoption, what it looks like, we can't achieve the KPIs, right? None of this matters if we aren't embedding all of this in place. So there needs to be that really good implementation plan, really good adoption strategy. And then from a Salesforce professional perspective, the team that is obviously managing this, we need to manage quality control. We need to be able to look and make sure that everybody's using the system in the right way, that there's a level of quality assurance, and that we are ultimately evaluating success, which is what, you know, takes us all the way back around to the KPIs. You know, have we set out and achieved what we wanted to do? Can we go back into that C-suite meeting 4 months from now, a year from now, and say, I'm really delighted that, you know, yes, you've spent 50 grand on this, paying for me, paying for the product, you know, all the costs are in there, but it's brought us another £1 million in. Brilliant. You know, that's the story that you want to be sharing. You know, you want to be sharing that it's brought more money in, or it's reduced costs, or it's brought more customers in, or you've got an increased repeat customer rate. You know, they're the stories that everybody wants to hear and are so fundamentally important when it comes to Salesforce projects, because I absolutely guarantee if a business or a management team don't have sight of those, that's where projects will get called, where teams will be let go, where promotions won't happen, or they won't even buy into it in first place, and it will get stalled. So I didn't want to just say these were the 15 KPIs today, because I think what's so important is that you understand the process that you have to go through to, one, make sure that you've gathered the right KPIs, 2, that you can articulate those back to people, that 3, you can prioritize those, and 4 is that you're communicating them all the way through the journey to all of the people, but also you're listening to what's important for the individual that you're engaging with as much as the business on the ground. And that, you know, with this journey comes all of these additional skill sets that you might need along the way. So this leads me to sort of just an opportunity to talk about the consultancy skills course that we deliver. You know, we love delivering value. There's loads of masterclasses and content on our YouTube channel that you can watch. So we absolutely love giving content for free. But if you want to invest in, you know, training around agile project management, business analysis, change management, I run the consultancy skills course, which we've been running for many years now. And we provide it on demand or do it live. The next course is running in September the 23rd. And it goes for 3 months. It's now a live session a week where I do live mentoring and training and exercises with you all. But all the content is available online to watch in between that as well, with exercises. So if any of this has sort of felt like, oh, okay, this sounds great, but I need to learn and upskill in any of these areas, then I'd obviously love to support you in the next steps of your journey, and ultimately help you increase your pay rise, win more jobs, everything else. Like I coach consultancy owners. We're currently working with 7 leaders of Salesforce consultancies at the moment to help them grow their business and articulate things. I really enjoy that. To individuals who are working in sales teams and SIs and Salesforce consultants who are out there every day doing all of this, or Salesforce admins who kind of struggle to get that CRM roadmap and buy-in from their C-suite, you know, helping them build their confidence and their ability to communicate with the teams internally. So really we have a whole mix of people that do our courses and sort of go through this journey with us and to upskill. And a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, and I'll just hand over to Baresh if you're on the call, is a couple of tools that you can use to support you on your journey with this as well. So one of the tools that I advocate is Survey Vista, and it's an online tool that helps you gather information from your employees, from your customers, to track and measure those KPIs. And so it's 100% native to Salesforce, which is great because from a data compliance requirement, everything, it means all the data's integral into your system, and it also supports all that data compliance. You know, your data isn't going out to any third parties, but it will help you track all of your information for your KPIs. So I'll just hand over to Baresh. Where are you? Stop sharing.
Yes, I'm here.
You're there. Brilliant. I'll just hand over to you and you can share a little bit more about the product and how it works. I will spotlight you. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Thank you. I hope I have 5-7 minutes to speak about the product, right? But if I go over time, please let me know. Yeah.
No
I
problem.
hope you can see my screen. Yeah.
We can, yeah.
Yeah. So the way Heather said, Servista is 100% native app to Salesforce. So you don't require to do any integration while working on Salesforce. Servista basically allows you to create different surveys and forms for your real-time customer feedback collections natively within Salesforce. There are different use cases you can configure. So as simple as like Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction score is a survey, or you can create different forms for non-profit educational domains. And if your use cases are complex, you can create different quizzes and assessment as well. And basically, the application touch base across different verticals in a different business processes. So depends on the use case. The product can help you configure your use case. The main reason people would go for a survey Vista is to maximize their revenue by capturing their customers' feedback, streamline their interaction with their customers, and which would boost the engagement and retention with the customer, right? We have designed a service in 4 key pillars. So basically, you collect your customer feedback natively within Salesforce. You integrate with your related data within Salesforce, like contact, accounts, leads, opportunity, right? That way. You understand that feedback in context of your other CRM data and then act on that part, right? So say, for example, if you received a negative NPS for one of your strategic account or a contact, you basically follow up with them to understand what was the pain point and try to mitigate as early as possible, right? The product itself is native, so underlying platform comes with all the security and compliance certifications. So GDPR, HIPAA, SOC 123, High Trust, all those certifications are applied to Servista as well. Okay. Why people choose Servista? Because it's built on powerful platform Salesforce. It's 100% native. Our pricing is affordable, so it's non-metered. You get unlimited surveys and unlimited responses with Servista. It comes with inbuilt rich insights, but we can also use Salesforce reports and dashboard to slice and dice the data as we want. It comes with robot security with underlying platform, right? The way I explained. And then we have 24/7 support. We have detailed knowledge base, which will help you get started with the product. And whenever you require us to get on a call, our support team is always available. right? And we have more than 400 leading brands using Survey Vista for different use cases. I just highlighted some of the enterprise customers who are using Survey Vista for their different use case. And we are highest rated 5-star product on App Exchange. So when you search by surveys or Survey Vista or forms, you'll find us on Salesforce App Exchange. Yes. Yeah, Heather, I just wanted to give brief overview to the team, but if anybody has any question, happy to answer.
Thank you so much. No, it was a great overview. Thank you. I think, I think it's important that every Salesforce system has an online form tool to collect all of this information to help shape the KPIs. I think of all my years working on Salesforce projects, they always needed an online form tool. And I think the benefit of yours is native to Salesforce, like it just all of the data sits in there, which, just gets rid of so much of the integration headache that you have with other tools. So really valuable and great to have you on board as a partner with this campaign. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it is a great, thanks, Sybil. Yeah, I mean, you can't do it without it. What's so important is you can identify KPIs, but unless you can track them, it's a waste of time. You can talk about everything, but unless you can, do it, you can't, you can't do that. So if you've got any questions for me, Bresh, let me know. We've got 5 minutes. I'll just put us both on Spotlight. Any other questions that come up from the presentation today? I hope that was, it's been valuable for you. You've got some new ideas, new approaches. Let me know if anything's come up.